Last week, we talked about Canadian players hitting milestones in the NCAA. John Mechie III broke 1,000 yards receiving this past weekend with a dominant performance in the Iron Bowl, a game that went 4 overtimes. The Crimson Tide close out this week against Georgia, but Mike, it's worth looking back at that Mechie milestone with the effort he had against Auburn.
It was unbelievable. I mean, I'm very happy that he didn't do the Michael Strahan really cheapy to get to the milestone, like Strahan did when he got the single season sack record. He went through the front door, 13 catches and 150 yards. And when it was time for Alabama to really, when they really needed to move the ball, it was Mechie time. You look at the other receivers in that game. No receiver had more than 2 catches in that game, aside from Mechie. It was all Mechie all the time. And, to see him do it the way that he did with 2 huge games in the last 2, 4 100-yard games plus in the last 6 games, he went through the front door. And I'm really happy for him. He broke Chase Claypool's mark by 8 yards, and he's still got another one to go. So a fantastic year for Mechie, and I'm glad he got the grand.
Careful with the Strahan comment. Your inner Eagles fan is showing, Mike. But I do agree with you. Mechie was phenomenal this week. I mean, what can't you say about the guy? Jameson Williams, his running mate all season long, gets ejected from this game for targeting in the first half, and it becomes the John Mechie show after that. And Alabama's offense and Bryce Young struggled for a good chunk of this game until pulling a 97-yard drive out of their behinds in the last 3 minutes. But if you watched, when they needed to move the ball, it was always looking Mechie's way. Over 20 targets he racked up. Like, we were looking for the 1,000-yard mark. I thought he was going to hit the 1,000-catch mark by the end of this game. And it was just phenomenal. The 2 two-point conversions that they absolutely had to have in overtime. I mean, I'm so glad for him to get that walk-off moment to win it, too, because he very much deserved it. And that's the cherry on top, guys, of, I would say, one of the best Canadian seasons in the NCAA I've seen. And that's, right on par with Chuba Hubbard's, in my opinion.
Gord, last week you pointed out that Chase Brown's quest for 1K was even more impressive at Illinois because the Illini didn't have a true number 1 running back for the first half of the year. Now, you've drilled into the numbers even a little more. Tell us just how impressive this rush to 1,000 was for the London, Ontario native.
Yeah, I mean, it seems kind of counterintuitive, I guess, but what's most impressive about it for me, Chase Brown hits 1,000 yards. He only had 160-something carries this year. There were 45,000-yard rushers in the country this year, so not a super exclusive club. But of the guys that hit the 1,000-yard mark, there were only 2 that had fewer carries than Chase Brown. Just look at this past weekend, and he racks up 110-plus yards on just 14 carries. So talk about a guy that makes the most of his action. And that 2-headed monster for Illinois will come back next year because his running mate in the backfield is a 240-pound freshman. So if they can build off that 2-headed monster next year, I'm really looking forward to seeing what that Illinois offense looks like for next fall. But take nothing away from Chase Brown this year. Fantastic performance, averaging over 5 yards a carry all season long. Excellent stuff from a guy that we didn't really have on the radar much before this season.